Welcome to the deep dive. We're trying to make sense of things again.
Always try.
Yeah. And today it's something super common, something you probably just did. Online stories. Those little posts that vanish. What's the real pull? What are we actually doing with all that tapping?
It really is a modern ritual, isn't it?
Yeah.
Constant need to share and watch these tiny fleeting moments.
Yeah.
And it looks, kind of superficial on the surface.
Totally.
But I think there's some pretty deep psychological stuff going on underneath.
Okay, right. Let's get into that. This compulsion almost.
Yeah.
To document the perfect coffee, the sunset, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing it's just going to disappear in 24 hours, it feels less like sharing, more like, I don't know, signaling. A constant stream of, look how great now is.
Yeah.
Is that feeling some need or just, creating a new hole once the story vanishes?
Well, the temporary nature itself is key, I think. It really dials up the pressure, doesn't it? To capture it, share it now.
Right, like it didn't happen otherwise.
Exactly. Like the experience isn't quite real until it's been storyfied.
Storyfied, I like that.
And you're right. The fact that it disappears seems to just make you want more.
Yeah.
More posting, more viewing. It's not like you reach a point of satisfaction. It just keeps going. A cycle of wanting.
A self-perpetuating wanting machine.
Yeah.
Then there's the content itself, this endless parade of perfection.
Oh, yes. The highlight reel.
Flawless holidays, effortless successes. Look,
Yeah.
rationally, we know it's curated. We know it's not the whole picture.
Intellectually, yes.
But it's still hard not to compare, right? You see that stuff and maybe feel a bit inadequate. Why do we keep looking? What's the draw in potentially making ourselves feel bad?
That's a really good question. Maybe it taps into something quite fundamental. This human desire to believe in an ideal.
An ideal, like perfection.
Sort of. For others, maybe, but also for ourselves. We consume these perfect little stories, almost hoping for like a blueprint. Some kind of reassurance that, yes, this perfect state exists, and maybe, just maybe, it's achievable for us too. It's the wish itself that keeps us hooked.
So we're hoping perfection is real, while simultaneously editing our own reality for the feed.
Precisely.
Deciding what makes the final cut, what gets left out, the messy kitchen, the boring Tuesday meeting. That stuff rarely gets storyfied.
No, definitely not.
This massive control we exert over the narrative feels like we're pushing away the bits of ourselves we don't like, repressing them almost.
That's a great way to put it. Repression in the digital age.
Yeah.
By only showing the polished version, we are essentially keeping the less desirable bits out of view.
Yeah.
Out of sight for our followers, sure, but maybe subconsciously for ourselves too. Think about filters, strategic angles, cropping.
All tools to refine the self we present.
Exactly. Tools to keep certain realities pushed down,
Well,
managed.
okay, and then there's the feeling after you post, that little jolt of anxiety.
Oh, absolutely. The immediate check.
Yeah, who's seen it? Any reactions? Does it actually matter if no one sees it? Does it make the moment less real somehow?
It really shines a light on our need for, well, validation, acknowledgement. We use those metrics, the views, the likes, the quick emoji replies, as external proof. Proof of what, though? Our worth.
Maybe. It feels like it sometimes.
But the irony is huge, isn't it? By
Yeah.
leaning so heavily on that outside feedback, our own internal sense of self can get, well, pretty shaky, dependent on the whims of the algorithm or whoever happens to tap through.
Makes sense. And we're so careful about what we choose to share. It's rarely just random.
No, it's curated.
It's the pretty meal, the funny moment, the impressive view. We're crafting these little mini stories, aren't we? About who we are, what our lives are like.
Definitely.
Is that an unconscious thing, trying to sculpt how people see us?
Oh, I think it's highly likely. We pick those specific moments to send a particular message,
Right.
to shape perception. But the risk, of course, is the more we polish that curated image, the further we might drift from our actual messy, genuine selves.
So the performance becomes the reality.
In the digital world, perhaps it can start to feel that way. Yeah.
And sometimes these stories just feel like pure escapism, like little fantasies. We're not just documenting, we're creating this idealized snapshot, a highlight reel of who we maybe wish we were, like little daydreams broadcast to the world.
That's a perfect way to think about it. Waking dreams. It connects directly to that idea of wish fulfillment.
How so?
Well, these stories become outlets, don't they, for desires that maybe aren't being met in our day-to-day lives.
Oh,
Think about dating app profiles. That's basically a continuous story, isn't it?
Yeah, good point.
Carefully designed to present this attractive, desirable fantasy. And what might be driving that? Often it's a deep-seated fear of rejection, right? So the fantasy acts as a kind of shield.
A defense mechanism, which makes me think about projection too. Like, are these perfect images we put out there, are they actually hiding our own insecurities? Maybe reflecting them back in reverse.
How do you mean?
Well, the person who only posts amazing travel photos, could they secretly be terrified of feeling stuck? Or the relentlessly positive person, maybe they're masking some serious anxiety underneath.
That's a very psychoanalytic way to look at it, and I think it holds water. Projection, absolutely.
So the glossy image is hiding the opposite feeling.
It can be, yes. When we constantly project a certain image, I'm adventurous, I'm always happy. It might be less about convincing others and more about convincing ourselves.
Right, to manage our own doubts.
Exactly, to keep our own fears or perceived flaws at bay by projecting the opposite outward.
It's also kind of fascinating to think about what isn't posted. All the mundane stuff.
The gaps.
The arguments, the frustrations, the just plain boring bits. The decision to leave that out feels deliberate, like another layer of filter.
Oh, absolutely deliberate. What we choose to omit is arguably just as revealing as what we include. These omissions are all part of creating that controlled, safe, palatable narrative we want to present.
But the repressed stuff doesn't just vanish, right?
Psychoanalytically speaking, no. Repressed content doesn't disappear. It can bubble up, influence our behavior, maybe subtly shape our choices online in ways we don't even realize.
Like maybe in those passive-aggressive captions. Or the constant fishing for compliments that's disguised as a joke.
Exactly. That could be seen as sublimation, perhaps.
Sublimation.
Yeah, channeling impulses that aren't really socially acceptable, like aggression or maybe even raw neediness. Our libido, in the Freudian sense, into something that is acceptable online.
So a sarcastic comment channels aggression.
Potentially. Or the relentless pursuit of likes and validation could be channeling deeper drives for connection or recognition, maybe even sexual energy, into these little virtual interactions.
But does it satisfy those drives?
Often, probably not. Which might be why we keep scrolling, keep posting. It offers a temporary outlet, but perhaps leaves the underlying need untouched, leaving us feeling unfulfilled.
It's almost like these stories are dreams, like symbolic little snippets of our unconscious desires.
That's a really interesting parallel. Freud saw dreams as the royal road to the unconscious, right? Symbolic ways of expressing wishes. And stories kind of function similarly, don't they? The perfect outfit. Maybe that's a wish for admiration. The cozy home picture. A yearning for connection or security.
The travel montage. Desire for adventure or escape.
Precisely. They offer this like safe space to play with different identities, different narratives, to symbolically enact desires, much like dreaming.
What about the opposite, though? The person who posts everything. Every meal, every thought, constant updates.
The overshare.
Yeah, on the surface you might think, wow, they're confident, unfiltered. But could it actually be masking something else? Like deep down, maybe a profound anxiety, a need for constant reassurance that they exist, that they're seen?
It's very possible. The relentless broadcasting could definitely stem from an underlying insecurity, an insatiable need for external validation.
Like shouting into the void, hoping for an echo.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It connects to what Freud called the pleasure principle, that relentless drive for gratification. Here, it's gratification through online attention.
Even if it's fleeting and ultimately unsatisfying.
Especially then, perhaps, because the lack of true satisfaction just fuels the need to post again.
Fear seems like a huge motivator in all this, too.
Definitely. What kind of fears come to mind for you?
Well, FOMO, fear of missing out, is the obvious one.
Right.
But also maybe fear of rejection, fear of being irrelevant, fear of being unseen, forgotten, alone.
All of those, absolutely.
Right.
They tie back to the ego's need for recognition, for approval, for belonging.
So each tap on share is like a little subconscious test. Am I still relevant? Am I liked? Am I here?
It can certainly feel like that, can't it? A constant testing of our perceived place in the social world, even the digital one.
And humor. So many stories use humor. Memes, witty captions, making fun of yourself.
Yes, humor is pervasive online.
It's a way to connect, sure, but is it also a shield? A way to keep things light, avoid getting too real, too vulnerable.
Humor is a classic defense mechanism, isn't it?
How so?
Well, it allows us to acknowledge difficult things, insecurities, awkwardness, maybe even pain, but without having to fully feel them or engage with them deeply.
So you point at the problem with the joke, but don't really address it?
Exactly. It can transform something potentially painful into something shared and lighter. But it doesn't necessarily resolve the underlying issue. It can keep us in a comfortable cycle of avoidance, in a way.
There's such a strange tension here, this duality. We create these polished online selves, yet there's this undercurrent of something else. Unease.
Yeah.
Ambivalence. We want connection, but maybe feel more isolated. We chase authenticity through careful curation. It's weird.
It is weird. Almost like echoes of, Freud talked about a death drive, didn't he? Thanatos. This drive towards destruction or dissolution, existing alongside the life drive, eros.
Whoa, okay. How does that fit with Instagram stories?
Well, maybe it manifests in this ambivalence, this creating and destroying. The stories vanish, this connecting and isolating, seeking the real through the artificial, this constant tension, this love-hate relationship many people seem to have with these platforms.
That actually makes a weird kind of sense, the constant cycle.
It's that push and pull.
And are these stories really connecting us? Or could they be subtly doing the opposite, creating distance? By putting forward this idealized version, the story self, are we actually widening the gap between that self and our real, flawed, offline self?
It's a definite risk. This focus on performance can create distance. It can lead to what some psychoanalysts call a splitting of the ego.
Splitting?
Yeah, like fragmenting the self into different parts, the real me versus the online me. And it can become difficult, potentially, to integrate those parts back into a cohesive whole.
So we're constantly seen, constantly visible online, but are we actually known?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah. Are we trading real intimacy, being truly understood, for just attention, fleeting digital attention?
Visibility versus being truly seen. They're not the same thing at all. And yes, the performative nature of much of this can feel like we're opting for the former over the latter, attention over intimacy.
It just feels insatiable, the whole process. You post, you scroll, you get a little buzz from a like or a view, but the underlying hunger, it never really goes away, does it? It's this endless loop.
It ties back to that Freudian idea that desire fundamentally can never be fully satisfied. There's always a gap, always something more we're reaching for.
So maybe the scrolling and posting isn't just about validation. Maybe it's a deeper search for wholeness, for something that the digital world promises but can't quite deliver.
That's a powerful thought, a search for completeness that remains perpetually elusive online.
And even though we try so hard to control the narrative, right? To curate perfectly.
We try.
It still feels like the stuff we don't want to show, the repressed stuff we talked about, it finds a way to leak out anyway.
The return of the repressed. It's a core psychoanalytic concept.
Yeah.
Meaning that the things we push down, try to ignore or deny about ourselves, don't stay buried forever. They tend to resurface, often in unexpected ways. Maybe in that slip of the tongue in a caption, or a revealing choice of filter, or just a pattern of posting that, on reflection, says more than we intended. The illusion of control is just that, an illusion.
Wow. Okay. And the fact these stories disappear so fast, like digital smoke.
Yeah, the ephemerality.
Does that mirror something about memory itself, especially now in this digital age? How fragile it all feels?
It's an interesting thought. Memory is already selective, reconstructed. And these fleeting digital snippets, are they reinforcing that fragility? Or maybe even creating a new kind of memory, one designed to be disposable?
Are these moments even real then? Or just constructed illusions designed to vanish?
That taps into huge philosophical questions, doesn't it? What constitutes real in a world saturated by digital representation? Are these curated moments authentic reflections, or temporary mirages we create and consume?
And we're all doing it together, creating and consuming these shared fantasies, little glimpses of perfect vacations, perfect homes, perfect happiness.
A collective fantasy almost.
Yeah. But what's the cost of living inside that fantasy too much? Does it start to blur the lines?
It certainly can. Spending too much time immersed in these idealized collective fantasies can make it harder to deal with the messiness and complexity of actual reality. It can blur that line between aspiration, I'd like my life to be more like this, and delusion, my life or others' lives are this perfect.
That's unsettling.
It can be. The risk is disappointment, disillusionment, or a constant low-level dissatisfaction when reality inevitably falls short of the curated fantasy.
So maybe next time you're just mindlessly tapping through stories or deciding what tiny perfect moment to post, maybe the real question to ask yourself is, what's really going on here for me? And what desire am I trying to fulfill? What fear am I maybe trying to soothe? What's the gap between this online slice and the whole me?
Exactly. It's about shifting the focus from just consuming or broadcasting to actually reflecting on the why. Turning that gaze inward. What are you truly seeking in that endless fleeting stream?
It's kind of amazing, really, that these seemingly trivial little digital habits, they might actually be windows into our own inner worlds, our unconscious drives, the things that really make us tick.
I genuinely believe they can be, if we choose to look closely enough.
So the answers aren't necessarily in the posts themselves.
Perhaps not. Perhaps the real insights, the real understanding, lies in the silence between the posts. In your own feelings, your reactions, your motivations, as you navigate this very strange, very modern digital landscape. That's where the deeper story might be found.